Opening shot. Cozy family living room. A big Christmas tree sparkles in the corner. Laughter. Wrapping paper being torn open. Everyone is smiling, except one man. My name is Gerald Thomas. I'm 68 years old. I live in a quiet part of Oregon. For most of my life, I've kept to myself, worked hard, kept my head down, and did what I thought a good father should do. But last Christmas, something changed. And I realized the people I loved most didn't just forget me. They erased me. Family dinner table. Plates full of food. Everyone laughing. Gerald sits at the head quietly, smiling politely. Studio microphone. It was supposed to be a simple Christmas. Nothing fancy. Just me, my son Andrew, his wife Melissa, and our extended family. I made my usual roast, set the table myself, even got their favorite pie from that bakery downtown. I watched as Melissa handed out neatly wrapped gifts with ribbons and names in gold ink. My niece opened a designer watch. My cousin got a Bluetooth speaker. My sister got a spa voucher. And then it was done. Every gift opened. Every name called. Except one, mine. I waited. I really did. I thought maybe it was part of a joke, or they saved mine for last. But instead, Melissa just looked at me and said, "Oh, we didn't think you'd want anything. You're always saying you have everything you need, right?" It didn't hurt the way you'd think. It wasn't anger. It was cold. Like being reminded that you were no longer part of the picture, just a faded background they tolerated. My son didn't even look up. He just went back to his phone. Studio microphone. They thought I'd just smile through it. Nod. Stay quiet like always. And I did. I smiled. I nodded. I let the night end without saying a word. Because what they didn't know is that while they gave me nothing, studio microphone, I had built everything. And I was about to show them exactly what that meant. Gerald slowly picking up a single glass of wine, raising it to no one, and toasting silently. Let them open their gifts. Mine was still wrapped. And when I opened it, the whole room would change forever. I didn't always feel invisible. There was a time, not so long ago, when I believed my life had meaning, real meaning. I worked hard, but not just to pay bills. I worked because I was building something. A legacy. A home. A future for my boy. When my wife passed away, Andrew was only 7. That funeral broke me in ways I never admitted, not even to myself. But I couldn't afford to stay broken. I had a child who needed me. So I dried my tears, rolled up my sleeves, and did what men like me do. I went back to work. I ran a small electronics repair shop in town. Nothing flashy. Just cracked screens, broken radios, faulty wiring. People came to me when they had problems. I liked that. I liked being useful. I kept my prices low and my promises honest. Over time, word spread and the business grew. I eventually opened a second location. Then a third. Quietly, I built a little empire, but I never flaunted it. My house stayed modest. My car old. I always wore the same flannel jacket my wife bought me 20 years ago. Andrew never asked much about my work. He thought I just fixed stuff. And I never corrected him. Maybe that was my first mistake, hiding the scale of what I'd built. But I didn't want him to grow up entitled. I wanted him to become a man who could build on his own. I paid for his education, quietly paid off his student loans, and helped with a down payment on his first home. Never once did I ask for a thank you. I didn't need one. When he brought Melissa home, I was genuinely happy for him. She was polished, confident, and knew how to charm a room. I welcomed her with open arms, treated her like a daughter, gave them space, gave them time, helped them whenever they asked, and sometimes even when they didn't. At first, things were fine. Family dinners, Sunday calls, polite smiles. But slowly, things started to shift. I remember the first time I noticed something was off. It was Andrew's birthday. I had gotten him a signed guitar from one of his favorite artists, a collector's piece. But when he opened it, he gave me a blank look and said, "Cool? Thanks, Dad." Then set it aside like it was a pair of socks. Melissa didn't even glance at it. Instead, she made a big deal over the designer watch her friend had sent him. It stung, but I told myself I was imagining things. Then came the dinners where I wasn't invited. The holidays where they were too busy to travel. The rushed phone calls. The new inside jokes I wasn't part of. I watched as the distance grew, like a crack forming in glass. You don't notice it at first, until one day the whole window shatters. Still, I tried to be patient. I told myself, maybe they're just stressed. Maybe work is tough. Maybe I'm just being sensitive. But in my heart, I knew something had changed. They no longer saw me as the man who raised them, sacrificed for them. They saw me as someone outdated. Someone who didn't get it. One night, during a barbecue, I offered to help Melissa carry trays from the kitchen. She smiled a tight, dismissive smile and said, "Oh no, don't worry, Gerald. Just sit. We don't want you hurting your back or anything." It was meant to sound sweet, but it was sugar over acid. That was the moment I realized they didn't just think I was old. They thought I was obsolete. Still, I said nothing. I smiled. I kept bringing pie to family dinners, kept wiring quiet money to cover their emergencies. I thought, maybe if I loved them harder, they'd see me again. Maybe they'd remember who I was. But they didn't. And by the time that Christmas dinner rolled around, they had forgotten completely. After that Christmas, I didn't say a word to anyone. I didn't confront Andrew. I didn't ask Melissa why she skipped me. I didn't bring up the gifts, the silence, the moment they turned the entire evening into a display of exclusion. No. I just watched. Closely. A week later, Andrew stopped by the house. He said he needed help, again. Melissa had, accidentally, maxed out one of their cards, and they were short on mortgage. He gave a rushed excuse about needing just a small loan to cover the month. I didn't hesitate. I told him to check his account in the morning. What I didn't tell him was that I also started checking mine. That day, something shifted in me. Something finally clicked. It was like a fog had lifted. All those small things I'd brushed aside, they began connecting. I remembered how Melissa had once laughed at a commercial for elder care and muttered, "Some people just don't know when to downsize." I remembered overhearing Andrew tell a friend on the phone, "Yeah, once the house is in my name, we'll probably remodel the whole thing, finally get rid of the dad vibe." I remembered the birthday they gave me a coffee mug that read, "Old but functional," as if that was supposed to be funny. But the worst moment came 2 weeks later. It was around 11 p.m. I was walking past the guest room, the one I had converted into a small study. I kept all my business files there, my investment reports, and a backup laptop I rarely touched. The door was ajar. Inside, Andrew sat at my desk. He didn't hear me at first. His back was to me. I stood in the shadows, silently watching as he opened my drawer, the one I kept locked. Except the key was still on the ring by the door. He pulled out a folder labeled, Holdco Trusts, one of the legal packets from my attorney. The moment he saw the word assets, he leaned in like he'd found buried treasure. He snapped a picture, then another, and another. I stepped forward and cleared my throat. Andrew jumped so hard he knocked over the chair. He fumbled something about just looking for a charger. But I didn't ask questions. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him and said, "You found what you were looking for." He didn't answer. He just left the room. The next morning, I installed cameras. Silent ones. Not because I feared them, but because I needed confirmation. Truth. Proof that I hadn't just imagined the growing rot in my own house. Over the next few days, I watched footage of Melissa snooping through my mail. She'd tear open letters addressed to me, then carefully tape them shut. I saw Andrew Google inheritance laws and search, "Can you put a parent in a home without consent?" I saw the truth, and it nearly shattered me. But instead of reacting, I started preparing. They had no idea that every camera, every document, every transfer I made was now being tracked, recorded, and filed. I wasn't just a father anymore. I was an old soldier waking up inside enemy territory. I stayed silent, but I started watching. And one night, at exactly 2:07 a.m., her phone lit up with a name I'd never seen before. And that's when I knew it wasn't just about money anymore. It was 2:07 a.m. I hadn't been sleeping much. Not since I caught Andrew going through my files. That night, I sat in my bedroom with a notepad, scribbling thoughts that wouldn't let me rest. Then I heard it, a chime. Faint. From downstairs. I checked the camera feed on my tablet. Melissa was in the kitchen. Phone in one hand. Glass of wine in the other. She was laughing. I tapped to zoom. The camera caught a full view of her screen for just a second. A name flashed across the top. Mason R. Below that, a text. "Once the old man's out, we'll finally have control. He's worth more dead than alive anyway." I froze. The cold in that sentence wasn't just shocking, it was surgical. Calculated. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't taken out of context. It was intent. And that's when everything inside me shifted. Not in rage. Not in fear. In clarity. She wasn't just talking about pushing me out of my house, or stealing my money. She was planning to erase me. And my son? The next night confirmed it. Another camera caught them arguing in the hallway. Melissa threw a folder at Andrew's chest and shouted, "He's still sharp, you idiot! You said he was slowing down!" Andrew replied with a sigh, "Relax, he's just old school. Give it a few more months. Once the trust flips, he'll be out of the picture anyway." That was the moment. Not when they forgot to give me a gift. Not when they searched my desk. Not even when they mocked my age behind closed doors. This was it. This was the betrayal that ripped the last thread of illusion from my heart. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel shock. I didn't even feel betrayed anymore. I felt focus. Because I realized I had spent decades building everything with love, loyalty, sacrifice. And now, the very people I built it for were plotting to strip it from me like vultures circling something that hadn't even died yet. So I put down my pen. I turned off the tablet. And I made a call. It was 2:23 a.m. My lawyer answered on the third ring. Groggy, but alert. "Gerald? Everything okay?" I only said one thing. "We need to activate the plan. Tonight." I didn't cry that night. I didn't yell. I didn't warn them. I just started planning, and I planned like a man who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. The next morning, I brewed my coffee like always. Same mug, same seat, same quiet routine. But everything had changed. I was no longer the aging father sitting quietly at the head of the table. I was a man at war, a silent war they'd never see coming. By 9 a.m., I was in my attorney's office. Richard Morgan had been handling my estate planning for years, a brilliant man, discreet, and fiercely loyal. He looked up from his files and asked, "So it's time?" I nodded. "Full trust activation. Transfer assets into the holding company. Seal beneficiary changes. Remove Andrew and Melissa completely. And move everything offshore. Cayman, Zurich, and Singapore, the plan we discussed." He didn't blink. "It'll take 48 hours. Do it in 24. From there, I moved fast. The real estate portfolio, 6 rental homes, 2 commercial lots, gone from public record. Shifted into shell corporations under a legacy protection trust. The businesses? Sold the parent company to my silent partner on paper, but we'd already set up a buyback clause under my granddaughter's name in 3 years. The house? Deeded to a Veterans Foundation for disabled soldiers. They didn't know it yet, but soon this house they were trying to push me out of wouldn't be mine or theirs. Everything they thought they were waiting to inherit was already gone, and all they had to show for it was a coffee mug joke and a text that said I was worth more dead than alive. It felt poetic. I even installed new security protocols at my home, biometric locks, new passwords, and 2 layers of encryption on all my files. I began keeping digital logs of every conversation, every strange action, every attempt to check in, unexpectedly. One day, Melissa showed up unannounced with a lasagna. She smiled too wide, called me Dad in that syrupy voice. "Just thought we'd drop by. Wanted to check on you." I smiled back and said, "Of course. Come in. Cameras are rolling." They didn't notice the lens embedded in the lampshade, or the recorder in the bookshelf, or the new legal folder marked "Last Will, Updated Copy," placed casually on the desk. She eyed it, pretended not to. Andrew lingered near the study door. "You still keep your old files in here, right?" I sipped my tea and smiled. "Oh, I've moved everything to the cloud now. You know how it is, old dogs, new tricks." Their visit didn't last long. They left with fake hugs and forced smiles, thinking I was still the old man playing house. But behind their backs, I was building a legal firewall they couldn't penetrate, let alone understand. 2 days later, I met with my banker. The accounts were updated, access revoked, notifications turned off. All activity was now monitored through a private firm specializing in family fraud. My insurance? Doubled. Beneficiaries updated. Melissa's name removed from everything, replaced by the daughter of my late best friend, a nurse who actually visited me twice a month. Then came the message to my staff. I gathered the managers of my 3 remaining shops on a Zoom call and informed them. "Effective immediately, I'm retiring. But bonuses are coming. Full ownership will be handed to you, 10% each, with a buy-in at $1 over the next 3 years. Earn it. Protect it. You've always treated me better than my own blood." They cried. I didn't. I just turned off the camera and stared at my reflection on the dark screen. They say revenge is best served cold. I say it's best served quietly, with spreadsheets, lawyers, and contracts they never see coming. They thought I'd never fight back, that I was too old, too slow, too sentimental. What they forgot is that I've been trained to win wars without ever raising my voice. Christmas had come and gone. They thought it was over. But I had one more gift to give. I waited 2 weeks. Just long enough for them to believe I had moved on, or forgotten. That they had gotten away with it. That I'd remain the quietly smiling old man who would never raise a fuss. Then I invited them all for dinner. A belated celebration, I said. Melissa replied within minutes, calling it so thoughtful. Andrew texted, "Glad you're feeling more festive now, Dad." They arrived with wine, with smiles, with fake laughter and, "Are you feeling better?" tones. The table was set. Plates perfect. Roast turkey carved just the way they liked it. Holiday music played faintly in the background. I let them eat first. I poured wine. I laughed at their jokes. Then I stood. Before dessert, I wanted to give something back. Since you all were so generous during the holidays. They froze slightly, just for a second. But I saw it. I handed out envelopes, each one labeled in gold. Melissa's fingers twitched. Andrew's jaw tensed. Inside? Legal documents. Copies of the new trust, the updated will, and the entire financial summary of my estate. And at the top, a simple sentence. You have been removed as beneficiaries, effective immediately. I watched their faces shift from polite confusion, to shock, to quiet, burning panic. Melissa was the first to speak. What is this? I sipped my wine. It's the truth. The one you tried so hard to sneak from my desk. The one you texted Mason about at 2:07 a.m. She went pale. Andrew turned red. You were spying on us? No, I said. I was protecting myself from you. I pressed a button on the remote next to my chair. The TV behind me lit up. Audio recordings began to play. Andrew's voice. Just give it time. The house will be ours soon enough. Melissa's voice. He's worth more dead than alive anyway. The room went silent. The kind of silence you only hear right before something explodes. Melissa stammered. That's out of context. You recorded us? You broke into my files. You opened my mail. You mocked me in my own home. And now you want context? I turned to the rest of the family, cousins, neighbors, old friends, who had always assumed Andrew was my pride and joy. I spent 40 years building something I hoped would live beyond me. And I nearly gave it to the wrong people. But thankfully, people always show you who they really are when they think you're not watching. Melissa stood up, pushing back her chair. You'll regret this. I smiled. I already regret wasting so much on you. Then I handed my niece the final folder. This house now belongs to the Veterans Foundation. They'll move in next month. I'll be relocating to a cabin near the lake. Quiet. Peaceful. Andrew said nothing. He just stood there, frozen, watching everything he thought he owned disappear. They left without dessert, without goodbyes, without anything they didn't come in with. And for the first time in years, I finally felt full. It's been 6 months since that final dinner. The house I built with my own hands now hosts veterans who were once homeless. Men who, like me, gave everything without expecting anything in return. Every time I visit, I see laughter in the rooms. Not greed. Not gossip. Just life, honest and real. I live by the lake now. Small wooden cabin. No Wi-Fi. Just birds, trees, and the sound of water brushing the shore. I spend my mornings with black coffee and my evenings watching the sky change color. It's quiet here, but not empty. The empire I built, It's no longer mine, not in the traditional sense. It lives on through those who earned it, those who respected it, those who never saw me as invisible. My 3 shop managers, the ones who stuck by me through recessions, storms, and long shifts, now run the business as partners. They text me photos of their kids wearing "Boss in Training" t-shirts. They call me once a week just to say thank you. Not for the money, but for the trust. I've started mentoring at a local high school once a week, teaching kids how to fix things, not just gadgets, but how to build from failure, how to repair their mindset. Some of them don't have fathers. I know how that feels. So I show up. As for Andrew and Melissa, they tried calling. Once. Left a voicemail that started with, "We were just confused," and ended with, "We don't deserve this." I didn't call back. Not out of hate. Out of clarity. You see, forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back in. It means letting go of the weight they left behind. And I've let go. Because the truth is, they didn't just betray me. They taught me. They reminded me that real legacy isn't built in silence for people who never asked how you're doing. It's built loudly, with purpose, for those who see you when you're still standing, not just when you're gone. Droplet final emotional line, soft voice, fade out. They took everything, except my soul. And from that, I rebuilt my life. Not for them. Not for revenge, but for me. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth, even if the world forgets them. And remember, silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's strategy.